It is our Techie Talk time here on Quincy Access Television with State Representative Techie Chan of Quincy. Hey, Techie, how are you?
Hey, Joe. Good to see you again on this cloudy Thursday morning.
Yes, this will be our last Techie Talk of January 2023, probably.
Yeah, we want to do a weekend swing by.
Hey, speaking of weekends, how was your Lunar New Year celebration?
It was good. We had a very quiet New Year's Eve dinner with just the immediate family at the house. Everyone did potluck. We all brought something. And we did a Zoom call globally with the family on my mom's side. And then we had WhatsApp, best wishes going around the world with the different family members. So it was a little, I wouldn't say like downer, but it was just quieter. But I mean, the best part was actually having a couple hours on a Zoom call, listening to what is going on in other people's lives. And not everybody could be in the Zoom call, so their parents or their cousins or whomever would update us on the missing relatives on the Zoom
Gotcha.
call. Again, if you're not in the Zoom call, your other family member will update us. But no, it's still lovely to do, and the video format, as you all know, adds that element you wouldn't get on a conference call.
Yeah, that's true. Or a letter or a card. Curious, what's the overall kind of sentiment in China in the first really Lunar New Year since the COVID restrictions were lifted?
Well, the infection rate is quite real. I had my uncle's goddaughter was in Shenzhen. She's from Shenzhen. So she took the first opportunity to see her parents and her family she hasn't seen in almost 2+ years as she goes to university here. And the whole family got COVID.
Mm.
Some of the older members had a little harder time. Some of her cousins had a little bit harder time, but they all lived through it. They are fully vaccinated under the Chinese vaccination process, but it wasn't fun. People are still extremely cautious out there. People are spending heavily. People are trying to go elsewhere, not just international travel, but anywhere else travel. I think everybody on this call will fully understand what I'm saying.
Mm.
And they're just kind of riding out this wave. There's no other way to put it. And obviously, some of the concerns of the neighboring areas, like Macau and Hong Kong, both have access to all Western vaccines and European vaccines, and the vaccination rate is okay. We actually have a better vaccination rate than Hong Kong. Macau is actually very vaccinated among its population. It's a very small island of 500,000 people, so it's much easier to deal with. But I mean, the casinos are open. People are partying. People moving around, and as you may have seen in the news, given the fact that nearly half of the country, of 1.4 billion people, are moving around for a 2-week time period during the Lunar New Year. Obviously, COVID follows the movement.
Right. Yeah. You can almost, graph it really on a chart as people go. So goes the virus.
Yeah, and the problem over there is a testing problem, right? There's no more government testing. As crazy as the mass testing was, they had actually very good statistics. And it's not the same as the situation in the US, where a combination of prior infections and higher quality vaccines, people are testing at home, but people do still get the PCR test if they feel the need to double check, and those are reported at DPH. And we have the wastewater check, as you all know, reading from both major papers. The MWA and the DPH and other disease scientists, look at our wastewater to determine viral loads and can actually find viral DNA. So some idea where infections are going, even though we don't have mass testing like we did at the beginning. And of course, if you have test at home and you have COVID positive, definitely please, try to convey that information to Department of Public Health. A lot of these COVID exams have information on the box itself about how to get information to CDC. This is not a country that's going to come to you and try to put you in quarantine if you're positive, which was one of the reasons why people didn't want to report their test results and try to avoid PCR tests because they didn't want to go to quarantine. So the more accurate numbers are quite important, because otherwise we're down to relying on hospital intake. So, when you're at a hospital, those of us unfortunate enough to be in the emergency room will have to do a COVID test. So, that's the other place where you get a lot of your COVID testing data.
Right. Yeah. And of course, right here in Quincy, it's going to be back to in person for Lunar New Year on February 5th, I think, up at North Quincy High School.
Yeah, the last time was in 2020. I missed the one in 2020 February because I had the flu. So it was I had like a couple of weeks of that cough, cold, wheezing circumstance in early 2020. So I actually have not been at an event since 2018. So I'll be over there. It's going to be quite a crowded area. I've been much more cautious about mask wearing in high crowded areas. Obviously, I'm taking a mask off. I'm at a microphone by myself and for quick pictures around the room. Kind of an on and off mask situation for fast pictures. Time and duration continues to be a time, duration, distance are the issues of COVID, right? The longer you're near someone that can spread the virus through their respiratory system, and the amount of time you're with them, it changes the odds of the possibility of getting it.
How are things going on Beacon Hill these days, Tacky?
Well, it's a little bit of a quiet moment now. Bill filing due dates ended on Friday. So right now, Pete has a big sigh of relief that bill filing is over and the computer system worked. Obviously, you can still file bills after bill filing deadline. It's called late file bills, but unlike the ones that are been filed on time, those bills are automatically referred directly to the clerk by both branches for immediate referral recommendations from the clerk to other committees. Anything late file, you actually have to request the committee of rules on both branches to admit a bill to refer to the committee. So the clerk will be doing mass disbursement of bills at some point, probably in 6 or so weeks to committees. We still have no committee formation yet. Both the House and Senate and both political parties have not made committee assignments. I am expecting perhaps the Senate will go first this time. But there's also a lot of changes. I have 5 new members of 40. So there's a lot of dynamics. Of course, there's always political dynamics of internal, interpersonal, and other type of relationship issues that will influence committee assignments, especially in the Senate with a smaller body. In the House, we still have one outstanding election to determine it. We have Lenny Mira's seat, who's an incumbent in I can't remember his district now. He had like a 70% changeover in his district. It was a massive changeover. He found himself in a recount situation where he's down by 1 vote. So for a little recall, if you didn't read the Globe on this, there are 2 recount situations. In both instances, the person who lost the recount filed a suit in Superior Court asking for injunction of the other one being seated, while seeking the court to make a determination on the ballots. You all known in the past, courts have injected themselves regarding determination winner based on ballot reveal. The last time, this most noble time, actually not last, the most noble time of this was actually a congressional race regarding Bill Dillon and Phil Johnson in the congressional primary.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Hanging Chad started in Massachusetts, right? And that was determined by Supreme Judicial Court, not the federal
I had
court.
forgotten about that. That's right. Yeah.
Hanging Chads, Massachusetts, Quincy, not Florida. And we had massive election reform regarding massive machine upgrades, which is the Scantron machine to see today. So the problem that occurs here is that both persons seeking to challenge the vote did so after the vote was certified by the Governor's Council on December 14th.
Oh.
You got to challenge the vote. You got challenged before certification, which I'm kind of like, really? It's not like this hasn't been done before. So the Superior Court citing that, well, the vote's been certified, you didn't get here on time. It's up to the House under the Constitution to determine whether you should be seated. The House can decide to seat or not seat a member. So most recently, the Harrington seat up in the Groton area was seated because it was a 7-vote differential. And Speaker created a special committee composed of Representative Day, Representative Ryan and Representative Jones, who's the minority leader, to make a determination. They determined that the Harrington seat was clear cut, 7-vote win. The Lenimira seat, still a lot of question marks going on over 1-vote differential. So it's a little tricky for both the House Speaker and the House Minority Leader to do assignments because this isn't a situation where you have a special election seat circumstance. We have an empty seat. This is a situation where you have a pending seat. And both sides would like to have a determination of the actual membership totality before they assign committees. Could they do it with blank spaces? Yes. But that would also indicate that in the Democrats' case, that hey, we already decided we're going to pick the Democrat in this one, so we're going to leave the seats blank with the anticipation.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Republicans have the same problem. They could leave blank spaces, but anticipating getting that seat. So it kind of becomes a weird, like, ooh, is it not or is it so? So I suspect, hopefully, that in next week or so, I'm hoping in next week or so, I suspect that perhaps the 3-person committee will make a final determination of whether to seat or to call a special election.
Okay. Yeah. It just goes to show every vote really does count. Every vote matters.
Oh, absolutely. People always dismiss this whole supermajority circumstances at the election level, particularly in Massachusetts, with a supermajority Democrat. But every vote does indeed matter. And every candidate running for office, the quality of the candidate, the quality of the race they run does matter.
Yeah. Especially here at the state level. There's no electoral college at the state level. It's your vote is counted as a vote.
Yeah, and I always tell folks it's much more close contact, particularly for state representatives, even those with larger geographic districts because of smaller population towns. You get to have a better sense if you're local elected. Same thing at the smaller level, be it board of selectmen or school committee or mayor or city councilor or any level of small
school committee member, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and some school committees have a district-based, not citywide. So it gets extremely intimate when we have school district-based school committee members. And that's a good thing. I really believe that voters should have an opportunity to get a feel of their local elected officials and make it determine if they like, dislike, agree, disagree. But also be comfortable asking a question to a local elected official about something that is important to them.
Yeah, typically school budgets are, take up the bulk of a community's budget. So they're spending your money.
And everyone should have a right to ask questions and get a copy of what they would like to see. And to, like I said, feel comfortable asking questions. I mean, I don't consider myself particularly intimidating by any stretch. And people have a question, more than happy to listen what the question is. And if I have the answer, I'll tell you. If I don't have the answer, I'll take your number and me or the staff or somebody from my office or myself will get back to you. And you guys can imagine I do take calls, and sometimes they're not happy people, which is fine. Amazing how a bit of a conversation develops, and sometimes it helps a lot on calming people down, and try to get a constructive conversation together. And my staff is the same way. We want to ensure that people feel comfortable expressing themselves. Again, we not always want to agree, but I think that's crucial. Today's environment, where it seems like being not civil is a way of communication now to get what you want, and we'll see how it goes. It's interesting cultural change I've observed over many years of doing constituent services.
Well, social media didn't exist all the time.
Well, the feeling is that I get a lot of issues regarding sensitive matters. I do, trust me. It's not like I don't look at what people send in, but there is a large volume, and people tend to forget that you're not the only one in the world who is concerned about this issue, whether you're for or against. And I understand the importance of the passion of the issue, but the level of insensitivity, not necessarily directed at me, but other people's opinion of the matter is becoming the norm. Advocates have been great. I mean, to provide good information, to provide diverse opinions, but every so often you hit one that you're kind of like, huh, I mean, is this about you or is it about the cause, right?
Right.
And that makes you a little nervous because it's like, to get to that point where it's no longer being passionate about an important issue. It becomes name calling and very, how do you put this, a hostile.
Yes. Yeah. Any bills on your docket you want to talk about, Jackie?
Well, staff hasn't killed me regarding bill refiling, right? So those, I do have some unusual bills out there. One is my data disaggregation bill, like called data equity, to ensure the state actually recognizes all people with different ethnicities, particularly on studies and understanding, what services they need. And this is important because I come from a very diverse city, as you all know, and the state is increasingly diverse, and a lot of immigrants and first generation born here folks at large levels. And, we're not always counted best if you put us in a lump of Asian as opposed to our individual ethnic groups. It becomes much more apparent what different needs are in different communities. And I have some language out there regarding certified nursing assistants. For some reason, Red Cross no longer does multilingual testing. Would like to restore multilingual testing on certified nursing exams. Certified nursing assistant, CNA, certified nursing assistant exams. So they have multilingual testing of that. I do have some stuff on childcare tax rate increases. People are aware that this is a tough issue in today's families. The Biden administration's increase deduction or credit? I can't remember. I don't have children, so my brother benefited from this more than I did. Has ended. They had a 1-year extension last year for that benefit. So we'd like to have some variation at home here. It was something that was actually discussed as part of the big tax package that we didn't pass last year. I'm sure it's going to be coming up again this year.
Right.
Obviously dredging continues to be a very big concern with our coastal community. I do have some information, bills directing dredging, but also, got some language and a few bond bills and some money in ARPA and surplus to try to cobble together a few dollars for dredging. So, I have a bill to do directed dredging, but also at the same time been working for several years now, trying to cobble money and I'm going to try to convince this new governor to allocate part of the capital budget she has towards dredging of Quincy Bay and the surrounding areas, we hope. What are interesting bills? I have a bill updating the current bank robbing laws. It's been a long time since bank robbery laws has been looked at. And also we have no ATM machines, an empty ATM machines robbing a bank, essentially. So, some what I refer to as technical updates.
Okay.
And that's I think very important that we do things like that. Bill regarding more information on continuing education on different professions, including things like real estate. Brokers have been seeking some continuing education updates to the profession to reflect the modern world we live in. What else I got? I got some complicated bills. One is regarding this subprime loan issue regarding the reverse yield curve. We could sit here for an hours. I'm trying to figure out how to explain that one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the current economic environment has created an inverse effect regarding long-term lending and long-term investment in bonds and CDs, and it's caused an inadvertent effect of creating a subprime loan that isn't a subprime loan. And it's very technical and very complicated. And I suspect what I have on paper may be amended a few more times as we're trying to figure what it is.
Okay.
Have an OSHA bill requiring OSHA education requirements for private companies. Right now, OSHA education requirements is required for public projects, but not for private projects. So I'd like to expand the 10-hour OSHA certification required to private construction development as well. Again, this is from the South End incident where you had a couple of folks die who were putting a drainage system in the South End, and basically the street collapsed on them, for lack of a better term. They basically drowned in mud. It was just terrible incident. That was my motivation to put that bill together. So yeah, that's a small handful of a lot of bills.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Filed, and hopefully, some of these bills will look favorably by committee chairs, and we can move forward.
Okay. Speaking of bond bills, you're aware, of course, the governor filed her own massive multi-million-dollar infrastructure bill. Have you had a chance to look at that?
Not really. I think it's like 900, I'm sorry, 900, like 67-ish man-ish, something.
Yes, yeah.
It's not quite a bid. The economic bond bill we passed this fall was done on a voice vote. It included no bonding. We were not in session. One person could have objected to the bill moving forward, and we did almost no public policy. So a bond bill was filed by Governor Healy, reflecting the fact that they would not approve a bond bill from the prior session. As you all know, the governor's recommendations on bonds and budgets are dead on arrival as far as I'm concerned, and waiting for the various committees who are responsible for reviewing these budgetary and bond items to make recommendations what they think should be the spending limits and spending on what, and whether to increase the size of the bond bill. So actually, governor's going to be filing quite a few bond bills. As part of the economic development bond bill, she also filed a Chapter 90 bond. Which Mass Municipal Association was asking we get a head start on that, which provides road and bridge money from the state to municipalities. And, again, we'll consider the size of that bond, whether to increase or decrease. It will change the disbursement timeframe. And interest rates are up, folks. So that's going to be a part of our consideration as we hear from the state treasurer what our borrowing rate's going to be.
Yeah. Oh, so no rubber stamp just because she's a Democratic governor, just like you predicted, Jackie. I think that Chapter 90 was about $400 million that she filed.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty high amount. We haven't done that amount in my time frame. $300 million was the highest amount we've put out. I'm aware the MMA, the Mass Municipal Association, was looking close to $600 million.
Yeah.
I had this issue regarding Mass Municipal Association, but that's a different conversation as well. But we'll see what our transportation chair considers once we have transportation chairs, and of course the bonding chair and the Ways and Means chair afterwards. We'll review the proposals. I think both leadership teams in both branches would like to get some kind of Chapter 9 money done sometime before the fiscal year begins. So we can do a 2-year disbursements. We do the bond bill for 2-year disbursements, and quite often the bond bill is outside our debt cap because it's kind of a special situation, and the state will assume that debt on those capital projects that are used by the cities and towns. We will take the brunt of the interest rate, and sometimes people forget that when we do things like this and the school building assistance grants, we're taking the brunt of a good portion of the debt that normally be carried by cities and towns. I think that is sometimes not always conveyed by municipal groups to their local constituencies, and I think it's important that the state delegation sometimes has to remind folks that's what we're doing.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. That doesn't get highlighted. Certainly, only the benefits to the community get highlighted.
Well, it's great when you go to ribbon cuttings, or if you get invited to a ribbon cutting sometimes, if there is one. It's a reminder of the fact that we are a big investor. I mean, we have the development infrastructure financing programs still going on in Quincy Center, and I hope that the governor's office will evaluate those programs to allow more DIFs to occur in communities, so they can do more economic district improvements in different sectors of their city. So I'm hoping that maybe they'll do another review of that. Again, that is something that state provides, but they have to demonstrate collecting tax revenue as a result of this investment, the property tax level, and otherwise, we'll claw back the money. So,
right.
There are strings attached to many grant and bond projects. However, things like Chapter 90 is very specific. Roads and bridges, enjoy, don't need to come back. Local aid is unrestricted local aid. We provide that. We also provide Chapter 70 money, which is cash for the cities and towns for their school systems, providing record numbers of Chapter 70 under the latest education reform bill. So Quincy has been a huge beneficiary of this.
Speaking of, I was reading this morning about a bill filed to make school lunches free permanently. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, we've done school breakfasts, if I remember, in the last budget. It was a continuation of a pandemic program by the federal government. We were fortunate enough that we have sufficient funds to do that. School lunches for all all meals in schools, let's just call it what it is, and do all meals in school. I think it's something we should seriously consider. We're looking at a budget forecast of anywhere between 3 and 6% revenue growth. I think that's a pretty broad range, personally speaking. I think I'd rather see a 1% range rather than a double range from 3 to 6. So it clearly certain cloudy waters regarding the economy and what tax revenue growth is. But obviously, we budget things like this into programs that are municipal programs, really, school lunches and municipal schools and municipal control. We do something like school lunches. It has to be a permanent part of our budget. It's something we can't just do and take away.
Right.
And again, these are pandemic programs that are very valuable. And I think there'll be strong consideration at our level to try to figure out if we can't afford this program permanently. Again, municipalities themselves could do variation in the same program. I remind folks, just because the state isn't paying for this, municipality can't. But I think it's something that we definitely must consider, and we'll see if we can put inside our budget.
Okay, all right. Any indication as to how the so-called millionaires tax is playing out so far?
Yeah, listening to the consensus hearing, which I didn't get to listen to all of it because I had meetings during the day. I got at least a part of the Department of Revenue Commissioner's report. And they're recommending a much smaller figure this year of, well, not quite $200 million, below $200 million. They want to be very conservative because since we don't know how this is going to play out, we don't want to over budget, over recommend revenue that we don't know what it looks like, because it's going to be the first time we're going to do this. And as I said before, lawyers and accountants, are going to be able to work overtime and get their money's worth and try to figure out how to keep tax burden low on folks that cracked the $1 million mark to pay 4% more for each dollar. Other organizations have recommended that we put that money aside into separate funds for education and transportation, as opposed to building it into our budget directly. I don't know if that's a good or bad idea just now. I would have to give it some more thought. But the warning coming out is that you should be very cautious about building the millionaire's tax into your budget until we have a combination of regulatory issuance by DOR on how this will work, how it will be paid. And they're considering something like, for example, they're considering that, get your 5% in first. And if you crack the $1 million mark, they'll look at, how to deal with that surcharge taxes as we move along. The first year is going to be very rocky on this. I think after we get past this tax cycle, it'll be much more definitive and much more, how to put this, a much more clearer in the regulations of how it'll be implemented. So
yeah, I read a little bit about that report too, and one thing I took from it was that there does not, at least right now, there's not this feared mass exodus, of millionaires leaving the state so they can avoid the tax. That doesn't seem to be happening.
No, this is a high quality of life state. And I do understand money equals mobility. That is true. You have economic means, you can move. That's a fact of life. But also your property values are very high in Massachusetts. So the idea of moving, you have two choices. You're going to, actually you have a lot of means. You got more than one home in many places. So let's call that one what it is. You got a lot of money. You can afford a lot of houses, right? In many different places. So that's not going to change, right? And likely those folks that do that already have part-time residents in Massachusetts because they already have tax shelter outside the state. So, let's call it what it is. I think the biggest challenging section is really not just home sales, but smaller businesses that are LLCs, LLPs, partnerships, sole proprietors, and so forth that are not corporations. Not corporate status entities. And, there's going to be a lot of trying to figure out how to change the size of their tax burden coming through, because part of it is that you not just paying taxes, but you're actually taking deductions for business expenses, especially if it's a pass-through situation where the revenue passes directly to the owner of the business. And then, they take that out in their Schedule C on business expenses, which gets very complicated, and you need an accountant to help you through it all. So, I think that's the one's going to be tricky. Again, I'm a big advocate for corporate status formation. there's hundreds and hundreds of years of case law in corporate status. Yes, it is a double tax in many ways, but you also get corporate shieldability if you don't screw that up. But also gives you, in this case, the millionaire's tax, the ability to kind of control your own salaries, and obviously control shares. But most corporations are private companies, not public companies. So the share valuation is not as critical in some
Right.
areas. So, but that's just me personally speaking. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, people run a business that, for tax purposes, financial purposes, pick a corporate entity that works best for them. But that's just me. I mean,
Yep.
yes, that's just my opinion on the matter. The more expensive option gives you much more protection on so many different levels, including the ability to manage your taxes too.
Yeah. Any significant changes in the state income tax code this year that you're aware of, Tacky?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
I'll probably be surprised as you all when you open your TurboTax. In my case, I do my own taxes on TurboTax, so I do rely on software to help me through a tax calculation. So I'm not aware of any major changes this year. We didn't, like I said, we didn't move forward in our tax package last time. I'm not aware of any phased-in issues coming in. The tax rate is still 5%, which is the same tax rate we had back in the 80s. And other than the millionaire's tax, we are a flat tax state, or now a two-tiered flat tax state.
Right.
We'll see how that goes. But I'm very hopeful, and I would like to, personally, I would like to actually push forward, if not all the issues in the tax package we did last year, but at least move forward on issues that actually impact working class people, especially the rental deduction. Not like it's going to solve all our problems regarding the high rents in the area, but it has been touched in like forever, and it needs to go up some. What it is, I'm not sure what the revenue committee is going to suggest and recommend. I'm hoping this spring, but that's something in particular that I'm interested in. Obviously, a child care tax credit I'm very interested in. Earned income tax credit out there that we're very interested in as well. But child care and rent reduction in particular, I would like to see something done. Hopefully, the first half of this year.
Okay. Wait and see how that works out. Has the governor finished filling out her cabinet? Do you know?
Yeah, she's about done. I think she's at 12.
Okay.
She did a health and human service, health and humans, EOHHS, Health and Human Executive Office, Health and Human Services. She's probably going to change the name of that anyway.
Yeah.
It has the ability to change everybody's titles. And I believe it is the CEO of Boston Medical Center that's going to take that job. And I'm trying to remember the whole thing from Status News Service. I'm trying to recall it right now, but it's interesting because they have somebody there that has extensive experience operating a massive bureaucracy. And I think that's a very good thing, given the size of health and human and public health. When you look at the totality of, I'm hoping that she hires more private sector administrators for things like DPH and disease control and so many other sectors in public health. Because it is a real bureaucracy, and it's not just bureaucracy of the government, it's bureaucracy of dealing with hospitals and health centers and pharmacies and so forth.
Yeah.
It's not strictly government bureaucracy. You have to know how to interact with other corporate and private bureaucracies also. So I think that's the most important assignment besides administration and finance right now. We are still waiting for the governor's reorganization plan to come to us, where we will approve and review and approve the governor's recommendation for reorganization of government. There is still a lot of talk on the Hill that he should break up economic development housing into 2 secretariats. And of course, she can make more secretariats or transfer government agencies between secretariats. So we're eager to see what her recommendations are. And
You were correct. It is Kate Walsh, President, CEO of Boston Medical Center, and she will head the Executive Office of Health and Human Services.
all right, so I'm mostly correct.
Yeah.
My ability to remember names, as you all know, is terrible. But like I said, I'm very, I think this would be good. I think this would be a great fit. Again, given the current health crisis-ish situation, I find this whole situation very exhausting, regarding COVID, as you all know, but also other respiratory diseases floating around this winter. and the challenges to our healthcare systems that have been facing for many years, but particularly the last 3 years have been extremely strained. So, we'll see how that works. So I think the
Yeah.
government's just about rounding out her secretariats.
Well, she created a new post too, right? Is a climate chief or a climate executive or something of that nature?
Yeah, the purpose of that is to do coordination among government agencies to try to get maximum efficiency on climate change. To try to
Oh, all right.
as much
Okay.
as possible. However, that secretary is not a secretary until she makes it a secretary by law.
Oh, which the legislature has to approve, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
unless she makes her a special advisor to the governor, which we don't need to approve.
Okay.
Sometimes those happen. Governor's offices in the past have created a number of special advisor positions within the executive office itself to report directly to the governor, but doesn't really have like cabinet level staff.
Okay. Interesting.
And then we have to budget and pay for that cabinet level.
Even though you haven't approved it.
Yeah, it's a funny one. I don't know how she's doing this. I'm going to suspect she's in the executive office's payroll for now.
Yeah.
But again, until we see that reorganization bill, I can't tell you more.
You don't know, right? Exactly. Sure. Did you watch Mayor Wu's State of the City? Just curious.
Nope.
Okay. Curious about how what she said might have impact on the state. The biggest impact, I guess, would be free public transportation.
Yeah, that's not happening. I think the speaker pretty much spelled it out, and obviously, the good mayor of Boston tends to forget there's people outside of Boston who is flipping the bill for the MBTA. And I've seen studies, I've heard from my colleagues in Boston that we don't need fares because state subsidization and federal subsidization, if you take that away, just use that money to pay for the T and, get rid of a fare system. It's a net zero situation. And I'm like, yeah, but did you consider the capital cost?
Mm-hmm.
And did you consider, the payroll shortage because they have a shortage of workers?
Right.
You consider the fact you want to do electrification. I mean, it's wonderful ideas, but it's not future looking. It's about like, what can I do in the next 5 minutes? And obviously, we are looking for improvements in our own little world of transportation here.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to see carbon neutral or carbon reduced buses. I want my red line to work well, not just discussing the orange line all the time. Very thankful that we have a new Walton T station, but I do not have a parking garage at Quincy Center.
Right.
What about us, right? I mean, you talk about, she talks about what her needs are, but the MBTA system brings 1 million people to Boston pre-COVID, not out of Boston.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Boston residents are leaving, the area. So, I mean, I get the bus system. Bus systems are a little bit more concentrated. They're targeted areas. They stay within various geographic zones. They have to have a degree of efficiency with them. I get it. That makes sense. Silver Line with the airport target area, there's a degree of efficiency associated with it. They need to make that more efficient. But I mean, the big rail systems in particular will have enormous impact on the surrounding communities, of which the majority of folks go to the city of Boston to provide economic stimulus. And right now, the downtown area still is short humans. I can't explain anything then a lot of workers are not going back to office buildings because, we were hunting for a restaurant for the House Asian Caucus members to meet. And we would like to have some private room, not in the State House, in a relaxed setting, having lunch to talk about our priorities. And pretty much all the nicer or restaurants who have private rooms are not serving lunch still.
Really? Wow. Okay.
That's a reflection of the higher end economic bracket of the workers are not coming into Boston.
Right. Still working remotely. Yeah.
Yeah. And that means they're not asking for private rooms themselves to do business, nor are they lunching in some of the more nicer restaurants, because that's what those private rooms are. They're in those restaurants.
Right. Yeah. So it's not worth it for them to offer that. There's just not enough of a market for it.
Yeah. And it becomes a restaurant cost that they're actually better not being open for lunch because it actually saves them money and bank on higher dinner service.
Right,
And even
right.
then, weekday dinner service is not as vibrant as it is in the weekends. I mean, people talk about, things come back in Boston. Yeah, because you
Mhm.
look for Friday, Saturday numbers, and you go. Most of us going to Boston Friday and Saturday to go to the theater or go to museums or go to concerts or go to whatever, and you dine. Is it's everything's great. Well, not on a Tuesday night.
Right, which is really what pays the bills is steady stream of customers, not one or two nights.
Absolutely. Well, not expecting a packed room on a what Tuesday, Wednesday. You do
Right.
expect perhaps 30% capacity, and you build that into your business plan. And I didn't realize it was still that way until we actually had to go hunt for a luncheon room for the caucus.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't heard that either.
Yeah, and we were struggling to try to find a place. And to be honest with you, I had doing an event, meaning, not a luncheon. I had to do literally what it sounds like. I had to pay for an event price
Mhm.
to host a luncheon in a room to be able to discuss business in a relaxed setting.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was kind of like annoying, to be honest with you, but that's what we had to do. So I started the first luncheon. I'm going to try to encourage my other colleagues in the caucus too. You can host the second one. You can try to figure out where we can go for a luncheon.
Yes, yeah, you maybe someplace on the North Shore be more available.
So
when it comes to public transportation, it would seem to me that we could learn things from what's going on in Europe because they have really got it down to a science. It's vastly better.
oh yes, and they pay for it.
Yeah.
I mean, we are still the lowest or among the lowest public transit fares. And that has always been one of the major problems. We're one of two places that has flat fares for the entire system, us in New York City. But New York's a little bit different. There's a whole different infrastructure, how they do it there. It is another old system. But other places do distance-based fares. You say distance-based fares in Massachusetts, a lynch mob's coming for you. I've been around a lot of fare increase hearings in my life, in Quincy and at the State House. And the peep of an idea of a fare increase causes absolute fear among constituents. And even suggest the idea of distance-based is even greater fear. But the reality is that, and you can look at the MBTA budgets online, the pre-COVID situation has always been rising costs and a cap out on how much you can collect in fares because you can only put so many people in trains and buses pre-COVID.
Mm.
During COVID, obviously, that was a different problem.
Mhm.
And we also discussed how the federal government's assistance to public transit was based on 2018 fiscal year numbers, not the most modern ones, not even 19 or 20. And then, now, people are on the trains. I mean, but Wallaston Lot, which I use my indicator in Wallaston Station, sometimes it's full, but often more not as full.
Yeah.
And I am aware that it's a 60% pedestrian station. And am aware that people from Milton locales use the parking in Wallaston, other garages.
Mhm.
But still, I mean, it's an indication that traveling to Boston is not the same. And also, some of these folks travel locally, just going from Quincy, Wallaston to North Quincy, or Wallaston to Quincy Center.
Yeah, I also think some folks just aren't comfortable yet on public transportation. It's indicative of the increased motor vehicle traffic.
Absolutely correct. Traffic has definitely increased, particularly on the middle of the week.
Mhm.
A little bit later once you get to, I don't want to say a lot later, that would be false, but I mean, it seems a little later, the weekends.
Mhm.
And you do have, again, hours are odd. I mean, if I'm in Boston at 9 a.m., but I need to get back to someplace at 3 p.m. in Quincy, which I'm back doing these road trips. I have to get out of the State House before 2.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Assume an hour trying to get through the Back Bay, South Bay. I'm sorry, not Back Bay, South Bay connector on the expressway. We get all clogged up, and if you try to go down Southie to bypass, you're actually spending more time now to try it through because everyone else has figured out to do the Southie bypass. So it's almost like no point to it anymore. Your choice is sitting at red lights or sitting trying to get onto the on ramp.
Right. Yep. Be nice to be able to hop on a ferry, wouldn't it?
Well, hey, I mean, I'm not a boat guy. I think I've reviewed that more than once to constituents at home. I have this weird issue of water and heights. But that being said, I mean, ferry services for Swan Point Park continues to be a big priority, especially for Bruce and John, who's working on that project. I'm just kind of the support on the edge,
Mhm.
and the importance of trying to get those, ferry services to Long Wharf. But also, it'd be ideal we could get one to Logan Airport. I remember many years ago we did have a Logan Airport
I
shuttle.
loved that. It was the Harbor Express commuter boat. It was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and but again, you need to majorly subsidize
Mhm.
boats. Boats are not cheap. But maybe you should bring Michael Morris to the airline board to discuss boat maintenance, travel, and cost. And of course, now the gas price is extremely high.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, I'm trying to remember how this works, but one of the subsidies provided is to allow our boat contractors to be able to take advantage of the bulk rate purchasing of fuel that MBTA has to try to help lower
Oh,
the cost of that.
yeah. Hmm.
But again, people will not want to pay for things. An argument of why should I give you more money for crap service? Fair argument, but we don't have any money, so you're going to get crap service.
Yeah, it's like a catch-22 situation, you know.
Oh, no one says that part of the argument, right? It does invert as well. There is an inverse of the same argument. You're going to get crap service because there's no money.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
just magically make it happen, Tacky.
Well, people tend to think one way, but doesn't think the counter argument. As we've discussed more than once about this
Yeah.
conversations that we have in the world. If I present the counter argument, they pretty much want to lynch me at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, we're sending tanks to Ukraine.
Yeah, I am not a big fan of this. I think I've talked
Oh,
about it
really?
before. Yeah, I don't like the idea of sending sensitive military equipment to Ukraine. Too many bad things could happen with that equipment. We talk about it with the Patriot missile system. I get it. It is the best defense system on the planet, to my knowledge, regarding interception of missiles and drones and anything else that flies through the air. But again, it's your proprietary, unique military secrets of how that works. And I believe the Abrams tank, as demonstrated over and over and over again, in open field combat is the scariest thing on the planet.
Mhm.
You put that tank in an open field situation, opposing armor, they're dead. I mean, that's just my opinion. I mean, watching the Gulf Wars, using them in combat in other locales, you don't want to be, if you're the opposing side, you don't want to face down a U.S. Abrams. But again, it's to me, it's all about military sensitivity and secrets. And Ukraine is not what you call a up and up government. It's a rather corrupt government. People forget.
Yeah, that's been overshadowed, but that's been the case for way before this war started.
Oh yeah, it was very corrupt before this war started.
Yeah.
President Putin was banking on it being a corrupt government to have the people come with open arms, be taken over by Russians.
Right.
Clearly, he didn't understand that people think their corruption problems are theirs to solve, not Russia's to solve by taking over the country. So, and I believe that people should have the ability to solve their own problems. And if your government's a problem, we'll let the people in that democracy decide how to solve it.
Well, that was the difference. It was a sovereign nation, democratic nation, right?
Yeah, and their people like to be a democratic sovereign nation to solve their own problems. So Putin completely miscalculated that. But the Leopard tanks. What's the one? What's the UK ones? The Defender. Is that what the UK ones are?
I'm not sure about the name of it, but yeah, they're sending some too.
Yeah, UK sending some. You throw in the Abrams. It's a far cry from the tanks they want. I mean, the Ukrainians looking for hundreds. We're sending dozens. But I mean,
Yeah, 31, I think, was the number. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're dozens of superior equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have to use it like they did with the HIMARS as well in strategic usage.
Mm-hmm.
They can't do the whole, we're just going to run you over with 100 tanks coming down the fields. They're going to have to do the strategic usage of this stuff because, we're not replacing them, or to my knowledge, we're not replacing whatever gets blown up.
Right.
And this will actually be interesting as well as a proxy war now, because that's what this really is in the end, of a testing so-called Western technology against Russian and North Korean Iranian technology, it appears. And, obviously a lot of U.S. equipment has been battle tested in Afghanistan, Iraq, and so many parts of the world. So it's not like, we don't know if it works or not. But some of the other ones, particularly the British and German equipment, hasn't been in full battlefield settings before. And it's actually not U.S., British, or German, or Polish, or any NATO operator, but Ukrainian operators. And we'll see if the change in operator of the vehicle changes its performance. I would tell you yes.
No, very interesting. Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought of that. That's a very good point.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
not just the equipment, it's the people using it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're going to receive very short training time. I
Yeah.
mean, U.S. military personnel operating A1 tank is not exactly like here's 2 weeks and here you go. I mean, they're trained. I mean, they spend a lot of time with these vehicles to understand, all the intricacies before they go into combat.
Yes. Yeah.
Ukrainians are going to get much, much, much shorter time period than U.S. personnel or British or German or Polish or any NATO personnel regarding usage of this equipment, and have to be experts in a very short period of time.
Yeah. One thing I think was very revealing was that some of the Russian equipment dated back to the Second World War. It really kind of pulled the spotlight, the curtain back on how the Russians maintain their military.
Yeah, this is the myth of numbers, right? And I used Saddam Hussein back in Gulf War I, the fifth biggest army in the planet, had top 10 number of armor and all that. It's not the issue of how much you have. The issue is what you have. And the Russians have taken all old Soviet equipment, added to the bottom numbers. They have the largest armored and mobile armored units in the world. I mean, by far none. But they're counting all this obsolete equipment today that has been proven completely ineffective against modern equipment, including javelins. And the now I'm losing my mind. What's the other one? The tank busters. Is that javelin? I can't remember right now. But anyway, it doesn't matter. We can bust tanks. And the tablet of armor on these tanks, they just slap on the edges. We discovered was made of cardboard in some cases. It was almost like, really? So obviously corruption in the military is a big problem regarding, safe equipment.
Right.
Of all places, corruption's a problem. Putting cardboard as ablative armor in tanks is not good.
No, not you've been getting shot at by real tanks.
Yeah, exactly. So numbers don't matter. It's the quality of the equipment you have. And other countries that are concerned about the U.S. military, NATO military is watching this very carefully because, even though they've upgraded their weapon systems, their weapons have not been battle tested like the U.S. equipment. And a lot of NATO equipment have not had equal battle testing. So even though it's not NATO or American operators of these vehicles, as we've seen by other equipment that's been sent over here by NATO nations, it's proven to be incredibly effective.
Yep. We are at the end of our time, Techie, but we need to let folks know how to get a hold of you.
Yep, no changes, folks. Still in room 42 at the State House, 617-722-2370, 617-722-2370. Feel free to give the office a call and smash a button. I'm at this point where it's kind of like if you get the automated system, just hit anything and get a person. You can also email me at tackey.chan@mahouse.gov, tackey.chan@mahouse.gov. And the co-sponsoring email requests are coming in hot and heavy. And we should try to do a session where I open my email and see how many emails pop up in the time period we're chatting.
That might be kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that next time. We'll set the timer on my email. You guys get a clue exactly how many things fly into my email box.
That might be pretty revealing, actually. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we have State Representative Tackey Chan Facebook, at Tackey Chan, which is a Twitter. Please don't social media contact. Just contact by email or phone. It's always preferable, either one, phone especially right now with the email drive. MAlegislature.gov. If you'd like to take a look at the bills I filed, they're up online. You actually have to just type my name in the search and it will come up. And of course, tackeychan.org is the privately owned website that we use because the state, for some reason, doesn't let me to modify my own website on the state website. So it's a whole different information technology conversation of what I'm allowed to do on that front. So, you know, it's a gloomy day today outside, but you know, obviously, I wish you all a wonderful weekend, and those who celebrate the Lunar New Year, you know, I wish you a great start of the year of the rabbit. Horoscope says the year of the rabbit's going to be a lot of challenges, and we're going to overcome them.
Okay, there's some optimistic news to look forward to.
Yep. So see you in about a week's-ish time, Joe.
Yeah, sounds good. It'll be February by then, Jackie.
Yeah. Valentine's Day is only a few weeks, so you're going to be my Valentine. Is that what's going to happen next?
Maybe some candy. But you're sweet enough, you're supposed to say, right, Jackie? Thanks again. Talk to you next week.